Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Hope everyone is doing well. Today I'm going to be reading you 4 true ghost stories from Haunted Canada book series. If I pronounce anything wrong, I do apologize. Alien Signals, Toronto, Ontario. Even after Oscar Magowski wrote a book about his UFO experiences, most people didn't believe his story. They were even less willing to believe a Toronto area woman named Betty Stewart Dagnius. She claimed to have suffered through 3 harrowing abductions by aliens starting way back in 1925. In the late 1980s, she met with a Toronto-based team of UFO researchers headed by Larry Fenwick to discuss her experiences. During the meeting, she showed them a small lump behind her left ear. She believed something had been implanted there during her 3rd abduction in 1961, because after that she began hearing strange sounds or signals. They had faded over the years, but Dagnius figured an alien transmitter was still inside her and she wanted it out. Fenwick agreed to help. He arranged for whatever it was to be surgically removed at York County Hospital in 1989 and was on hand with the video camera during the operation. The item that was removed was round, nearly black, and very small. Just 1 by 1.5 millimeters. It also looked as if it had once had something very tiny attached in 2 places. Dagnius had passed away by the time Fenwick submitted her implant to a scientific laboratory in Mississauga near Toronto in 1995. An engineer named George Hathaway, another member of the UFO research team, analyzed it carefully using a scanning electron microscope. He didn't figure out what it was, but his analysis showed that it contained mainly aluminum, titanium, and silicon, as well as a trace amounts of calcium, potassium, sodium, sulfur, iron, and chlorine. These elements can also be found in bits of ordinary rock lying around outside, but a few of them, especially titanium and aluminum, can be used to make probes and transmitters. Without a Trace, Duncan, British Columbia. It's easy to see why Chris Rutowski, writer, TV producer, media specialist, and UFO researcher from Winnipeg, Manitoba, would include the disappearance of Granger Taylor in his top 11 lists of strange UFO reports. Taylor lived in Duncan, British Columbia. He had 2 passions in life, a love of machinery and an obsession with UFOs. He left school when he finished grade 8 to become a mechanic's apprentice and quickly earned a reputation as a real whiz when it came to repairing any and every kind of machine that needed fixing. He also loved building replicas of things such as planes and cars and rescuing abandoned machines, including an old train locomotive that he pieced back together in the early 1970s when he was still in his teens. And in pursuit of his other passion, he built a flying saucer in his parents' backyard. Taylor fashioned the main shell of his spacecraft out of 2 large satellite dishes, anchored to a base with legs to keep it off the ground. He furnished it much as a kid would a treehouse, even hauling up an old couch and TV so he could spend time there in comfort. When he wasn't working on some piece of machinery, he could usually be found in it, reading and thinking about how a real spaceship might be made to fly. But that morning, after a powerful thunderstorm rolled across Vancouver Island in November 1980, no one could find Taylor anywhere. He and his pickup truck had vanished. Taylor did leave behind a note for his parents, telling them he was going to board an alien ship that would take him on a 3.5-year-long voyage to outer space and back. The police investigation that followed his disappearance turned up no clues as to what might have happened to him. After 3.5 years without any news about or from their son, the Taylors feared the worst, but in the faint of hope that he would return one day, they left the red and white flying saucer standing in their yard. Cause for concern, Suffield, Alberta. Over the years, concern for the safety of airline passengers has increased. Even before a string of deadly hijackings, both commercial and military pilots had to report any unidentified plane or flying object they saw in the sky or picked up on the radar system. In the new millennium, doing this has become more important than ever. On March 21, 2004, the pilot of a Challenger jet flying over Suffield, Alberta, radioed air traffic controllers in Edmonton to say he could see a very bright light falling from the sky, trailing smoke behind it. 2 other pilots filed similar reports at about the same time. Later, the pilots and several other people who observed the incredibly bright orb in the early evening sky that Sunday would learn that they'd seen was an asteroid or chunk of comet burning up as it entered Earth's atmosphere. But when he first spotted the unidentified object not far from the plane, the Challenger's pilot must have felt a brief moment of extra concern for the welfare of his passengers, and rightly so. Security worries are always greater if one has an important world leader on board, and that evening the pilot was flying Paul Martin, Canada's Prime Minister, to a meeting with farmers near Picture Butte, Alberta. The last thing the pilot needed to worry about during the flight was a UFO. Arctic Encounter, Northwest Territories. Apparently, Prime Minister Martin wasn't aware that he'd just had a close encounter with a UFO in March 2004. But Vera Oviuk of Tuktoyaktuk, Northwest Territories, was very aware of her much closer encounter 7 years earlier, on February 22, 1997. It was early in the morning, and Oviuk, her son Grant, Lena Kodukak, and Churchill and Dorothy Wolke were driving a truck along the ice road that links Tuk and Aklavik in the winter. Suddenly, Oviuk spotted a large silver-colored shape drifting across the road just above the trees. Then, as the mysterious flying object landed gently near the road, another one appeared out of nowhere and touched down a bit further back of the first one. Oviuk and the others could see that the craft closer to the truck had 4 large windows, each one lit up with a bright blue glow. Curious but nervous too, the 5 travelers decided to keep driving. But panic quickly replaced any curiosity they might have felt when the ships rose up and seemed to start following them. For more than 10 minutes, the blue-lit crafts glided just above the ground behind the truck. Then, as suddenly as the UFOs had appeared, they were gone. Relieved, the Oviuks and their neighbors drove on in silence, each one trying to make sense of what they had just seen. Thank you for listening. If you like this type of content, please consider subscribing and liking my channel, and I will see you on the next one.